Good morning. Can you hear me? No? Okay. Good morning. You're like, Gerber can't do this. I got you. Thank you. How are you? I'm good.
Hello, 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 hello.
There's another guy here. You want this one or this one? Good morning. Can we hear me yet? Third out. Oh, hey. Ooh. Now you hear me. Good morning, third hour. This week gets a little awesomely blurry. Like, what day is it? What time is it? It is the last third hour of our Writers Week 29. So yes, you can, in a moment, give us applause for all of the people that make this happen. We have the English department, specifically and especially Russ Anderson and Gina Ank. We also have the tech crew who made this mic work and makes everything run. Thank you so much. The boosters, your family, and you have been an amazing audience. And if you're feeling like me, those mixed emotions of the last day, I'm with you. We also have today in the aisles, if you look over here, we have the grandfathers of Writers Week, we'll call them, people who have founded this, who have been showing up year after year and continue to show up, and one of their children is up on the stage today here. I am so excited to introduce Elizabeth Metzger-Sampson, a poet, essayist, and frequent collaborator with the visual artists. Also, child of Henry Sampson, FHS royalty. She is the executive director of the Chicago Poetry Center, an incredible organization which organizes local roving readings and hires poets as teaching artists for poetry residents in Chicago public schools. She previously founded and edited Dear Navigator, an electronic experimental lit magazine, and her work has been shown at venues in and around Chicago, even in Germany. She will have many wonderful stories. I am so glad she's here. I know you are too. Please show her your love, Beth Sampson.
Thank you for that. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you. Happy Friday. So before I get started, thank you to the whole Writers Week team. Thank you to all the teachers and all the students and staff who put this together. This is such a cool thing that your school does. And I'm really excited. Like, my favorite part is to get to the end where I get to hear from you all and see what else you want to talk about from all of this. So before I get into my own writing, I wanted to tell you a little bit about my personal history with Fremd, which you might think is from when I'm a teenager, but it is not. It's actually much earlier, more like this age. You heard a little bit about the grandfathers of Writers Week. And my dad was an English teacher here and a speech coach here for many years. And when I was little, I would accompany him to speech tournaments on the weekends. So this meant that I would spend the day hanging out with Fremd students. And, they'd play with me, they'd pay attention to me as the little kid in the room. And sometimes they would even give me gifts. So what I wanted to show you today is the greatest gift I ever got from a Fremd student when I was a little kid. The bedazzled Beth jacket in all of its glory. Now, mind you, this is 1994. Bedazzling, as well as putting your name on things, was very, very trendy that But I have kept it. I will never get rid of this jacket. And so one of my favorite things from Fremd, and I have 2 family members in this hallway over here. Can you guys wave? So 2 former Fremd teachers, Henry Sampson and Maria Mungai. Thanks for having me back. It's always fun to be here. Brings back lots of memories. So before I actually read you some writing, I thought I would just set the stage a little bit. I am in that category of writers that I don't really do one thing, as you heard a little bit in the intro. So for my whole life, I've loved stories and poems and essays. I never really wanted to do one genre of writing. But complicating it further, I also like to draw and do mixed media artwork. And I'm good at organizing things and putting stuff together. So picking one of these things always felt like confining things a little bit more than I would want to. So I've tried all sorts of things, and I've done my creative work in all sorts of ways, including with what my job is. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about each of those pieces of my work, and then leave some time at the end so you can ask me about whatever you'd like to know more about. So I went to SAIC for grad school, and there I was writing these like really tightly packed, dense poems about ships and bodies. And while I was there, I was also making visual art that could go alongside that. So here's a flyer from a show I did where we created a whole immersive environment made out of felt from like the ceiling to the floor. And because we always wanted literary arts involved, we put readings into the space that was full of all of this felt, and we had poets come in and do readings. So we kind of made the space and then infused it with poetry. And because I really like collaborating with visual artists, here's an image from a collaborative piece that I did with my mom, where she did a painting and I did writing alongside of it, and we did it together for a gallery show. And here's the magazine that you were hearing about, Dear Navigator. So this is that organizing piece. And this was right after grad school. I founded Dear Navigator magazine. This issue had Ann Carson and Eula Biss, Juno Diaz, Tan Lin. And I created a reading series alongside of it so we could have established writers next to emerging writers and get them in a good conversation with each other. And then from here, I took another turn. I moved to Cairo. And this is a photo of my friend Yasmina taking a photo of protests in Tahrir Square. So I didn't plan to move to Cairo right when the revolution started, but that is how it worked out. So I moved right into another country's revolution, which was a really amazing learning experience. And I made all kinds of work there based on that learning experience. And I spent some time going back and forth between Chicago and Cairo. While I was there, I was doing a lot of artist and writing combined workshops. So this is a map that we looked at in one of those workshops called Radical Mapping, mapping as artistic practice. And in this, what we did was we walked through Cairo and we mapped what we could see in visual or written language. We made audio maps too, and we looked at all sorts of interesting maps with all kinds of different content, because the truth is you can map absolutely anything. And I also taught workshops outside of the city. So this one is from St. Catherine, Sinai, and this was all about finding place in our work. How do we ground into place in our writing or in our creative practice? And overall, Cairo was a place of learning for me, and I was lucky enough to be a young person who gets to experience the full paradigm shift of another culture. And just really grow and learn from another space. And from there, I moved back to Chicago. And that gets us to the nowish time when I start doing all the things I do now. So I mentioned I have this kind of complicated relationship with what I make because I like to make all of these different things. So when I came back from Cairo, I decided, why not just start trying to make all of it at the same time, all these different kinds of writing. So I'll give you a quick tour of some of those things and then dig into some of the reading. So one of the things I like to do is write about artists. And this is kind of an art review of 2 shows together at a gallery. But because I like to link things together, it's also an essay about the history of labor movements and women's suffrage and the board game Monopoly, because you should always have a little bit of fun while you're being terribly serious. And this is something that I wrote for the Poetry Foundation about bringing creativity into classrooms. And this is part of my work at the Chicago Poetry Center that I'll tell you a little bit more about a little later. It's an article for educators, and it's just about how to make poetry exciting and relevant in the classroom. And then I also write personal essays and social issue essays. And I, again, while being terribly serious about a lot of these things, I also try to be a little bit goofy about it. And this was probably before any of your iPhones were created. Back in, I think, 2016, the emojis were just not what they are today. So we needed some new emojis. That was my request in this essay. And at the same time, I started working on some poetry for a manuscript. These poems that I'm going to share with you now, they're these sort of, I think of them as like strange little creatures. And the way that I find them is with the work of other artists. So I was spending time with the work of visual artists, musicians, dancers, and you'll see their pieces while I'm reading these. I picked these 4 because they're the beginning of a serial section in this larger work. So this first one, the artworks mentioned in it and the artworks you'll see on screen are by Chicago artist Andrew Yang, and they're all from his Museum of Contemporary Art show. An expanding point in time and space. Slow drift the city and we reach the museum. My friends, the lovers, are in town for a visit, and today we amble, easy. Many mounds of sand are representing the stars in our galaxy, and I ask the lovers, this is just our galaxy, right? There are more galaxies? The artist has laid out a table of objects, too. Conch shells, rocks, minerals people hold for magic. It looks straightforward, but collapses upon inspection. Some items are what they purported to be. Others stop being natural as you approach them. Atoms shape-shifting at different distances. Styrofoam, trash, ancient rock. From each angle, the table shifts. And behind it, the artist has mounted to the wall another metaphor of our carbon-based wonder, his daughter's weight and ratio of the basic elements she contains. Oxygen, carbon, nitrogen, reconstituted, from girl into shell, water, sugar, glass. She could be this too. My amble hasn't been easy, not lately. What is the shape of my universe? Black hole rising. In the uncertainty, I grasp for shapes and rules. I imagine a creature formless in the woods. I'm trying to understand her atomic structure, the outline and configuration of her. My friends say if I'm quiet and patient, the creature will show herself like a story. I will sit and wait for her sense to take shape. I wonder where to train my eyes. Is she scuttling below leaf blankets on the forest floor, or is she skyward? And then I can answer the question myself. Whoop. And then I can answer the question myself. She'd have a nest, of course, protected in a tree, massive and made of terrifying things, gazelle bones and human hair. The artist and the universe made his daughter into her miraculous and chaotic molecular structure, and here he whispers to the rest of us how bizarre that fate is. She could be a shell. He remakes her in chaos. Out of chaos, I ask for my creature, will you come? If I summon you with the right meats and gems, I crave her demands, a rule or a sign, an omen or a totem. I am hungry for a guide, any kind of outline. In the next seat over, the lovers build their love and learn of space. They build and test their rules, the shape of their home. I take a photo of the daughter as shells and water and sit behind the lovers, my friends, watching a movie about space, all that is there, infinity and containment. My friends tell me that the universe did not begin in a place. Space is infinite and contained to the universe. Time is what expands. All time is radiating out from the center of time at the starting point of the universe. I believe a point can be in time and space, yes? I think I got that right. Which is the point in time when the lovers meet and know something inexpressible? Which is the point when the daughter forms, hair and skin, and then is reformed, shell and water and air? When was my creature formed, and how is she shifting? There is a point in time in which I lay out an altar and summon her, trash and gemstones, meat and styrofoam shape of meat, water from a mountain rise, to put water back in its shape. And in this one, there's two makers mentioned. The artwork pictured is by Anna Mendieta, and it's her Body Tracks work, and the writer mentioned is Banu Kapil. Horsing. I use my hands to learn my creature, the shape of things becoming. I petition her in flicks of the wrist. I ask the air what might summon her. I recall a woman pulling the color red down a wall, palms rust-soaked. Her desire drags earthbound. I am building an altar to my creature. The image of the woman smearing crimson will entice her, show her I understand. What else does she want? Answers come, pushed through my fingers, a small, pulsing Morse code, moss, velvet, and old nylons pulled in a tangle from someone else's trash. The feet dirty, she'll like this. I'll leave her a book, too, a book of magic, of cyborgs, that same book that led me to the woman plunging red down the wall. It's all in there. This altar is growing with just the right mix. I remember now, this same woman who made the book, she asked me to lay down once in the road. It was a shift change. I changed when I did it. Everything shifted, just so, with me, upon making her instruction. How this changed me, the way the sky opened, vibrating the deepest blue until I atomized into it, a brief and gaping infinity inside the morning twilight. So two more of these weird, oh, thanks. Two more of these weird little creature poems. They're kind of like, they're like these spooky little poems about this thing coming into existence. With the help of artwork. Okay, so this one requires just a little bit more of a story. So the image that you'll see in this one is a dancer. Her name is Ramita Ravi. And what you're gonna see is a screenshot of her from So You Think You Can Dance. And this poem was inspired by her performance on So You Think You Can Dance, but it was also inspired by a really, really weird thing that one of the judges said to her while she was on So You Think You Can Dance. So you'll hear that judge's weird line in this poem. My creature will hold language in her limbs, extension and isolation more first language than language. If a person speaks fluently, perhaps originally, in a tongue that is sound or body, rhythm or image, what becomes of them in the world? A dancer articulates each outstretched finger, curls into and out of her own body. We breathe with her, gasp with her. At night, I watch a show where the dancers gather to be judged. A dancer finishes her utterance, and one judge says to her, "I love those hands. I want them." For a day, I wander about imagining the judge taking ownership of the woman's hands, keeping them somewhere safe, a glass presentation box, taking them out when it's late and quiet, sliding off her own hands in one smooth motion like a ring into a jewelry box. Next, lifting up the dancer's hands, trying them on her own two arms. If the dancer is captured in English, can she free herself in another language? Will her bones hide her from the wanton judges? If a dancer's first language is elocution and she has 3 judges who may steal one beautiful piece of her, the farthest extension of her reach in her own tongue, when do we wreck the judges? Thanks. Last one of these that I'll share with you. 2 artists that you'll see here. The first is a piece by Bassem Magdi, and the second is by Andrew Yang. Again, a tidier galactic home for your pulsing heart. We are building, always. Back in the city, my friend and I go to the museum. A tulip with a face says, "Do not create anything. Others will use it and make it worse." I ask my friend to walk upstairs to the space show. I want her to see all these pieces of translation, stars as sand and daughters as shells. We climb and I start to spin out some recent chaos of mine. You know when you're so... I pause to collect myself. I can't stop saying you when I mean me. Upstairs, the artist is present. Last day of the exhibition. The artist pushes a broom across the space, sweeping up star remnants of the sand galaxy deposited here. We take in the translation in 3 dimensions. Internalized, it fractals, and the stars mean me, and the carbon means you, and it grows until everything translates to everything. Memory is the 4th dimension and every one after. My memories are, of course, false, and the only universe I can make. Carnage and teeth, gloss and 0 gravity. What happens when you lose control of your universe? Is there a better way to make it? A tidier galactic home for your pulsing heart? Each of us carries them about and makes the known world float. Little everythings constructed out of the flimsiest of materials, recollection and rolling waves on a wide plain. All right, thank you. So one more curve in what I want to talk to you about today. I figured I would talk a bit about my current professional work, my job as the executive director at the Chicago Poetry Center and how that connects to my creative practice. I also just thought some of you might be interested in what are these different jobs in the creative field, and you might have some questions about, what that work looks like. I don't know, what sounds fun, what sounds just plain hard. So feel free to ask me questions about any of this. So currently, as the executive director at the Chicago Poetry Center, we do 3 main things. We have education programs and literary programs and a program called Critical Conversations. And in this work, it requires constant creativity in how we work, while the work itself is also to champion creativity. And a little bit about each of those areas. So Critical Conversations is a program that uses poetry to have challenging and important conversations regarding racism. And this program has mostly been utilized in adult workplaces, but I actually think it would be exactly the same with teens. Our co-creators are in the top left of that picture there doing an online workshop. And one of the things I'm really proud of in this program is that it's using contemporary poets' work to engage these experiences and these stories in the room, and then paying royalties out to poets, because we believe that writers who have shared stories of trauma and resilience should be compensated for that work. And our literary life programs are public readings. So, this is our readings across the city and workshops across the city, pop-ups we do all over the place with all sorts of emerging and established writers. So here's a few pictures from those. This is Pegasus award-winning poet Ed Roberson reading at the Garfield Park Conservatory. And here's Aaron Coleman on the Chicago Water Taxi. This reading happened on the river and then ended in Pingtom Park in Chinatown. And this is a collaborative performance between poets and dancers designed by CPC and Chicago Dance Theater Ensemble. And then in our education programs, we do long-term residencies with students from 2nd grade through 12th grade. So I'm gonna show you all a few videos from the residency program and education program now. So here's some of our younger students talking about what they get up to. Sound? How's that sound? Good?
Poetry is like
Got a couple more videos of our students to show you too. And we publish a ton of student poetry on our website too, so I thought I would share some poems by other people. This is by a 2nd grader, and I love this poem because it sounds like it was written by Emily Dickinson. I will just also add that the 2nd grade poet also did the artwork that accompanies the poem. My friend's secret. I was told a secret a whisper can be. It felt so golden underneath the truth of such a thing. I won't tell such a thing, oh no. Why would it be through many years of sorriness, of happiness, of nothing? Oh no. Thanks to Rebecca. And then I'm curious, if you all can read this, I was wondering if I could have a volunteer to read one of these so all of the students don't sound exactly like me. What do you think? Anybody want to read? Volunteers, volunteers? Way in the back? Ah, great. Go for it. why not? How about Elijah? Yeah, on the left. Thank you. And before I go to the next one, I'm actually just gonna set up the next slide before I show it to you. So some poems both like really crack us up by the youngest kiddos, but also show a lot of learning. And for this next one that I'll share with you, the students were reading William Carlos Williams' This Is Just to Say. Will you raise your hand if you've read that poem? This Is Just to Say. Okay, the teachers have read this poem. So to give you a quick recap of it, it's basically a very short poem where William Carlos Williams says, hey, I ate the plums that you were saving for breakfast. Sorry, not sorry. They tasted really good. And the students were prompted to be on the other side of that, right? Like you woke up and you got the note being like, ate your plums, sorry about it. And how would you respond? So they were all asked to pick, a prized possession that someone took away from them and write their response. So here's a very, very young poet's response to that. Stole tiger. If someone stole my tiger, I will freak. I will put flyers everywhere. Then someone told me who it was. It was William Carlos Williams. He said he killed my tiger, so I killed him. Now, I know it's like a little brutal towards William Carlos Williams, but I want to assure you that William Carlos Williams is already dead, so there's no imminent threat to his well-being by this young poet. And we actually think it shows a great deal of learning and cleverness while being pretty silly, too. And all right, I am going to skip over one video just to make sure we have some time for chatting. So we're gonna skip over our wonderful friend Kwabena Foley here and go straight to our final program I wanted to share with you. So one of the things that is, the constant curves in the path with this job is that it's always learning new skills. So this past year, I figured out how to be an executive producer, and we created a web series of lessons for little kids. This is for grades 2 through 5, featuring one of our wonderful poets in residence on the team. She transformed into Queen Z for this series. So I'm just going to show you the trailer for this. whole bunch of stuff from a whole bunch of different parts of my literary life. And I'm excited to hear from you all with the end of our hour. So yeah, let's talk. What are your questions? And I had a friend staying in Cairo. So the question was, what influenced me to move to Cairo? I had a friend who was staying in Cairo for 6 months, and I went to visit her. And it was kind of the best way to get introduced to a new place because I had an artist and a writer there already, getting to know the artists and the writers in the town when I went to go visit. So it was a very warm welcome, and I was really excited by all the creativity happening there, and really excited for a change. I had moved back to Chicago, where I'm from, for grad school after living away for a while, and I was excited to move somewhere else and try something new. It was also really, really wonderful to go through the experience as a person who's really obsessed with language, to be like completely illiterate again, you know? Like, I could not make any sense of the shapes of the letters when I first got there. So the process of learning a new alphabet and learning a new language, like literally learning how to read again, was pretty cool. Yeah. So the question was, what was it like living through a revolution? Really, really interesting. I learned a lot all the time. And I think a lot of the learning for me was how sort of like gradual and constant and ongoing changes instead of one big moment. You know, like when we read the news later, it's, oh, a protest started this day and a dictator was kicked out on this day and then this happened, right? But really, when we're in those spaces, it's this day after day existence of things sort of slowly changing and growing. So like a story that comes to mind for me is, you know, Egypt had had 3 presidents for 30 years. So people, you know, were not used to having a democratic election coming up where there was actually like a debate to have about who the candidates were. And my friend Amato, who's an artist, did a project around town in Cairo where he put up these signs in beautiful Arabic calligraphy that said in Arabic, "If I were president, I would," and left them with Sharpies wheat pasted to all these walls around Cairo. And what started happening is that people would gather around these and write ideas on it and then start debating each other. And it had not been a free space for debate. So suddenly, community coming together in the street and being able to argue about politics and debate each other and think through, like, yeah, what would it be like if we had a president who wasn't in this one lineage of people? What might we do? What would we want to do with that power? Was really exciting to see. So I think a big part of the learning was how much is like our own experience as citizens in that, like what we expect from our government, right? And how we transform when our government is transforming. Yeah. I live by. I would say that creativity is just absolutely vital and critical. So, you know, whether I'm engaging in my own creative work or working for promoting creativity, whether it's in classrooms or in public spaces, I just think it's like a deeply vital human right that we get access to our own creativity and support in our own creativity. I don't think I see any hands right now. Are we have any more? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. Like one of my favorite authors is David Sedaris, right? And David Sedaris can talk about really, really heavy personal issues, and then he like cracks a really good joke while he does it, which I think can help us process more difficult issues. And then, you know, likewise, if we're talking about political or social issues, it's heavy, hard work, and it can make our hearts heavy, but it's also really important, right? Like there's a lot of stuff we got to talk about. There's a lot of stuff we got to work on. We should also be able to laugh and enjoy ourselves and have a good time while we're doing that. I always think about this Emma Goldman quote, which is, you know, if I can't dance, I don't want to be a part of your revolution. And, you know, the idea being, be out there, be the change, also be the dance party or make a joke too, you know? Have a good time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so a poet who just moved to Chicago, who I'm very excited about, is Felita Hicks. So I would recommend her for sure. And I'm going to shout out a couple of the poets on our team. So there's a Fremd high school student who I believe y'all have had back for Writers Week, Teresa Zieglowitz. She's a really wonderful up-and-coming poet. She's been winning lots of awards lately. And then also on our team, another poet who's coming up is Helena Chanzar. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Funniest high school memory. Okay, so I went to Oak Park River Forest High School, and my friend Jeff would drive around our group of friends in his family minivan all the time. And I don't remember what started this joke, but at some point it became a funny idea to steal as many clocks from the high school as we possibly could and cover Jeff's entire car with them in the high school parking lot. So Jeff came out from school and his car was just completely covered in all the clocks from the school. We're good? Yeah, we're good. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.